What's poppin', people of YouTube? So I want to talk about this Ukraine crisis that's happening. Now I just came back from a party. I'm a little drunk. I know I'm driving in the middle of the night, but I don't give a fuck. I support the troops. My best friend, my brother, man, he had his third son. Congratulations to him. We just had a blast today, just celebrating with all friends and all that. Congratulations to him. At the same time, this Ukraine crisis is happening, and my heart goes out to the Ukrainian people, including the Russian people. Why the Russian people? Because anybody going through turmoil, I lived with imminent danger floating over my head at any given time, like a bad cloud, you know. I've lived like that I grew up like that. Not that I lived like that, grew up like that. I know what that feels like. It's horrific, man. So my heart goes out to any people that are going through turmoil like that, or warfare and whatnot. Now, all this shit could have been avoided. All of it could have been prevented. I kind of think it feels like it's all predetermined, and it was just a game of chess and what's happening, right? Now, I'm gonna give a lot of history to this shit that a lot of people don't know, don't even understand, don't know why this is happening and why now, right? And you might not fully agree with me, but a lot of this, there's a lot of fact, and I'll tell you what's my opinion and whatnot, right? So we have to go to World War II, right? Germany gets split into two, Berlin Wall goes up, right? Now, geopolitics, we want to bring the Berlin Wall down. So the United States, NATO, USSR, they sit and they're in discussions, and the agreement is that the Berlin Wall will come down in exchange for no army moves any soldiers or arms east or west. Russia doesn't go fucking west. NATO, US doesn't go east. No arms, no people, no nothing. Not a fucking millimeter. Not nothing, right? Now, obviously, we break that promise. And when Russia says, what the fuck, we had an agreement, whatnot, they say, well, you're Russia, and that was USSR, right? So, December 91, 92, USSR collapses. A lot of people cheer, but you're talking about hundreds of millions of people, whole bunch of satellite states, and whole bunch of chaos, turmoil, death. It's nothing to cheer about. Anytime any creature is suffering is not some shit to celebrate, you know? Anyway, so this happens, right? USSR collapses, we break our promise, we start moving arms westward. Fast forward, actually, let me stay in the 90s. I don't know if you remember, but the 90s, there was a whole bunch of terrorism going on in Russia. Whole bunch of train, subway, metro bombings going on routinely. Fucking-teenly. You know, it was all over the news. I still remember, man. So, my family's from Armenia, which is a former satellite state of the USSR. My family history goes all the way back to genocide and whatnot, and I don't really want to talk too much about that. But there's a part of Turkey that I want to cover that's has a lot to do with this, right? So, United States and whatnot breaks the promise, starts moving eastward with arms and whatnot. Russia says, "What the fuck? Like, we had an agreement." Well, you're Russia, and that was the USSR, so that's not the agreement we had. Like, you're not the country we had the agreement with, you know? So whatever benefits us, we say we had an agreement with. Whatever doesn't benefit us, we say, well, you're Russia, not the USSR. So that's a main thing in this event. Now, 9/11 occurs, war on terrorism happens, We invade Iraq, Afghanistan, like we don't give a fuck. Bullies on the block. We're invading all kinds of shit, you know? Russia wants to join in on this with NATO and all that, and it's like, you know what? My country is victim to a lot of terrorism and whatnot, so therefore I want to be part of NATO and I want to fight this global terrorism with you. Nah, homie, nah, that's not happening. They say no, and that's a big hit to Russia, because it's like, what the fuck? Like, we're major victims of this, and we want to like quash this fucking shit that's happening, right? Now, in order for the US to go to Afghanistan and Iraq and whatnot, we have to land our military aircraft and all our shit in a territory prior to that. We have to refuel and land. So where do we land? We land in Turkey. So we create, like, I believe it's 5, but I'm gonna say like 4 or 5 major bases in Turkey to land and then go to Afghanistan, and we pay Turkey for that. Now, Turkey had a major genocide against the Armenian people in the beginning of the century. It was the first genocide of the century. Now, why does this matter? Because after the genocide, Turkey took a lot of territory in the east, right? So the United States strategically places the large majority of these major bases in East Turkey, because in the event Turkey says, you know what, fuck that, we want more money, or we're not allowing you guys to land your planes and shit here, American can just say, you know what, we're completely acknowledging the Armenian genocide, and we're gonna acknowledge that this territory was former Armenia and it was taken in an illegal way, and therefore it's now part of Armenia. Strike a deal with Armenia, land our shit in Armenia, and go to Iraq and Afghanistan. We're slick. America, I love America to death, man. Especially LA. We're slick as fuck, man. That's some fucking shit, right? So now Turkey is sponsoring global terrorism. Iran is sponsoring global terrorism, and Israel is sponsoring global terrorism. You don't believe me? Ask anybody who fled from Syria. They'll tell you about Assad and how Israel is funding all kinds of terrorism and shit. Just talk to the people that fled, that were there, that saw it unfold. I'm not pulling this shit like rabbits out of hats, you know? So now Armenia is a strategic place in the world, and so is Israel. Armenia is a Christian Caucasian country of which splits Muslim countries. It keeps them divided. So it's a necessity to have them on the map. Israel is a Jewish state which splits a bunch of Muslim countries, of which it's a benefit to have on the map. Why? Because there are 2 billion Muslims in the world. China has roughly, guesstimating, obviously, right? I'm guesstimating these numbers, but they're pretty fucking close. 2 billion Muslims, 2 million Chinese, 2 million Indians. The rest of the world, so you're talking about like 5.5 billion, about 5.5 billion people. The rest of the world is everyone else. Caucasians, white people, are a minority in the world. Blacks are a minority in the world. Hispanics are a minority in the world. So this is a potential major threat in terms of geopolitics in the future, because if 2 billion people unite, a whole bunch of shit can happen that you don't want to happen. Now, I diverted a little bit, so let me jump back on the train. So, well, actually no, because Turkey is sponsoring terrorism on a global scale, and a lot of it is directed towards Russia and whatnot. Russia wanted, you know, to kind of be involved in fixing this problem, right? Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a time where the Turkish government was putting a whole bunch of propaganda out there that, you know what, like, fuck Russia, we can take over that shit in 7 days, and like so many days we'll be in Moscow, and so many days we'll conquer this shit, and blah blah blah. So obviously, because of geopolitics, Russia's a superpower. They get together with a whole bunch of United States, NATO, a whole bunch of countries, G7, G13, G20, whatever meetings, right? And no one really gives a fuck. So what does Russia do? It takes over South Ukraine. What was it called? South Ukraine. When it took over, anyways, it took over that section of South Ukraine. Why did it take over South Ukraine? The reason why it took over South Ukraine, it's not Kiev, it's Crimea. I'm sorry, I'm a little fucked up. Crimea. It invaded and took Crimea. Why did it take Crimea? Because it checkmated Turkey. If you were to back up on the map and look at all the territory that Russia has direct influence over, and where it has its soldiers, and how it could create a defense force where it pretty much surrounds Turkey. So I said, listen, bitch, fucking calm your ass down, sit your ass down, because we just checkmated you. We surrounded you north, south, east, and west. So shut the fuck up. You have nothing to say from now on. And it checkmated them. The West really didn't like that, but hey, that's the way it is, right? Like, no one wanted to help them out. They helped them out. It's like if Mexico, there's a bunch of terrorism coming from over there in the United States, and they're committing, like, we're not gonna like it. We're gonna feel the same way like the Russians felt, the same way as we feel with 9/11. You know, these motherfuckers fucking blew our shit up, dog. Like, we're not gonna take this shit. So they took this strategic location so that they could surround Turkey. That was the checkmate for Turkey. Now, fast forward. Ukraine's former president flees Ukraine. The people kind of kick him out because he's backed by Russia. These dudes, obviously the West had some influence over there and whatnot. This dude gets kicked out. New president comes in that's backed by the West. West meaning us, the United States. Now, this dude starts adopting a whole bunch of, like, racist policies, anti-Russian policies and stuff. And you have to understand that there's a lot of, like, Russian Ukrainians or Ukrainian Russians, right? Ukraine starts adopting policies like Russians can't, like, anti-religious, like, you guys can't practice your Orthodox Christian whatever, you can't be speaking Russian, you can't, like, so, like, a bunch of, like, Nazi-like shit, you know? And if you ever watch videos, like, I'm a person, I like going to the source and hearing the sources talk, like the presidents and whatnot. If you hear Putin talk and he talks about, like, Ukraine and like Nazi ideals and stuff, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about them being, like, extremely anti-Russian. Now, you have to understand that Russia is it has a very diverse population, like the United States, because it was USSR and there was a whole bunch of countries united as one. It's probably the next diverse country in the world, and it was a superpower. Now it's Russia, and it still has that diversity, and it's still a superpower, right? So this happens with all this Nazi rhetoric type shit, in Ukraine. Russia surrounds Ukraine. And it says, you know what? East Ukraine, there's 2 territories where it's predominantly Russian, and you guys have been causing a whole bunch of problems to these people just because they're fucking Russian. We think we're gonna accept them as a separate entity and acknowledge their right as a separate country, right? But it doesn't actually do it. It's on the table and the discussions are happening. Meanwhile, discussions are happening with the United States, and the reason why it's happening with the United States is because the United States also controls NATO, and they're trying to solve this problem before it goes haywire. But United States does a bunch of slick shit like we always do, makes a whole bunch of promises and doesn't keep these promises. For example, it gave, and this goes all the way back to Native Americans. We made a whole bunch of promises to Native Americans and broke a whole bunch of them, starting from the beginning. We the United States government, not the people, not we the people, but the government's been doing this from the get-go, man. And it told Ukraine, you know what, disarm your nuclear weapons and we'll protect you in case of an invasion. No matter by who. It could be the Russians. We'll protect you. We'll be your police. We'll be your big brother. We'll be your homie. Right? Ukraine, with the new Western-backed president, the idiot he is, he gets rid of his nuclear armament. With the understanding that America's got my back. So Russia surrounds them and says, you know what? We're giving you so much amount of time, blah, blah, blah. Now, what Biden does during the time Russia has surrounded Ukraine is essential. Imagine what this prick does, man. Biden, literally hours, like half a day, like hours before Russia invades, Biden places sanctions on Russia prior to an invasion, man. That's like punishing your kid today in case he does something tomorrow, okay? If that's not egging them on to invade Ukraine, I don't know what egging on is then. It's a geopolitical strategic move of which they're like, you know what, we're putting sanctions, and Russia's like, fuck it, man, you guys want to put sanctions already and I haven't even done anything. Fuck it, I'm gonna invade this bitch. Now, you have to understand that Russia invading Ukraine, it's not gonna be it's not gonna be like genocide. It's not gonna be like let's destroy entire cities and infrastructure and all this shit. It's not gonna be like salting the earth or scorched earth policy, you know, because like I said, there's a lot of Russian Ukrainians, Ukrainian Russians. The rest of the world doesn't distinguish a difference from them. Only they do. That's like United States and Canada, man. Only we know the fucking difference. And a lot of times we won't even fucking know. It's like, dude, you're from Canada? No wonder why you're so nice. You're from Canada, right? At least in LA, anytime I ran into anybody and they're like, I got to know them, they're like, yeah, I'm from so-and-so in Canada. I'm like, no wonder why you're so nice. I thought you were either from the fucking Southwest, or I thought you were from Canada. Right? So Biden fucking literally egged these dudes on. They invade Ukraine. It's not scorched earth policy. They're probably just gonna take over, put a puppet in place, and then life goes on. Because Ukraine is a bordering country to Russia, right? So that's like if the Russians or the Chinese or whoever the fuck took over Mexico. We would take that as a threat. Like, dude, we're kind of like a little hostile towards each other. I don't like you bordering my country, right? So that's essentially what's happening. Now, at the same time, COVID is happening. Why is COVID important? Now, if you ever watch, like I personally watch a lot of videos in terms of the high courts, like Senate and the House of Representatives and what's happening. If you watch like Dr. Fauci and all that, they literally were speaking about the United States was funding these labs in Wuhan on gain-of-function research. Gain-of-function research is pretty much like research on viruses and bacteria to make them more deadly to human beings, right? Now, we fund these viruses in Wuhan, and then this virus, whether accidental or purposefully, gets released. At first they say it's bats, and then they say it's ticks on bats, and then they say it's rats and the cat dog, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's unclear whether purposely or mistakenly it gets released. In my opinion, it was obviously purposely, because right after this, the entire world goes into like shutdown mode over a virus that kills the same amount of people that the flu pretty much kills, right? And we don't stop the economy because we catch the flu every year and people die of the flu every year, you know? We don't stop producing cars because people die in car accidents. Numbers aren't staggering. This isn't the Spanish flu. This isn't the Black Plague. You know what I'm saying? So the entire world falls into an economic crisis, of which obviously we funded, but it's not clear if we sanctioned or okayed the release of, but it did get released. And everyone took a hit, right? Now, what happens when the world goes into turmoil? Well, one way out of depression is war. Like the United States got out of the Great Depression by joining World War II. Why? Because there's three types of business in the world. You have legal, meaning you create infrastructure, business, and whatnot. People start working, getting taxed, and that's economy. And then you have black market, of which a commodity is commodity. Cocaine is a commodity. Heroin is a commodity. Anything illegal, money is still being revenued and generated, and one way, shape, or form taxed, right? So that's the second form of business. And the third is violence, in terms of military violence, meaning we rape, plunder, pillage. Back then, today we invade and we blow shit up and blah blah blah. So, like, for example, your neighbor grows fucking zucchinis all year long, harvests, and then you go take it, right? Sun Tzu's Art of War said, like, if you were to take one carriage from your enemy, it's the same as you producing 10 carriages. And the reason why is because you have to have the infrastructure and build all this shit, right? But in modern times, things are so fucking crazy. It's not like 1 is equal to 10. Like, if we take 1 pound of iron, copper, whatever the fuck, from another country, like Iraq and Afghanistan, well, it's equal to 100 pounds. Because it takes vast infrastructure, it takes vast investment, vast time, energy, and money to create a pound of copper, a pound of steel, right? So 1 pound is equal to 100. So when the world falls in turmoil, war is imminent. Like I told my wife, as soon as the coronavirus thing happened, I go, man, we're gonna start seeing a whole bunch of crazy wars and shit. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. Now, my fear I do believe that the United States and Russia are best of fucking friends behind closed doors. Everything is predetermined, agreed upon, and whatnot. 2 superpowers. One controls the West, one controls the East as best as they can, right? And they skirmish over, you know, a few feet this way, a few feet that way, you know? They skirmish over the line of scrimmage and shit. Now my worry is that, okay, so Russia did the Ukrainian thing now, of which it's gonna all get smoothed out you know, they're not gonna try and destroy Ukraine because they want to benefit from Ukraine, right? My worry is that this is just gonna be another satellite war like all the other wars, right? Where like Russia's always funded one side and the United States has funded the other, and then we fought on a different territory with another group of people falling victim to it, divide and conquer. At the same time, we sell, train, and all kinds of things, arms, planes, just a whole bunch of crazy shit. And we pretty much, it's pretty much cheaper for us to send our troops to a foreign land and have them fight in a war that we know that for the most part we're not going to lose, because it's cheaper to train soldiers that way than for us to keep them on base and then train them and blow weapons up and destroy our fucking territory, our soil, our thing. So Russia and the United States understand it's cheaper in terms of readiness for war to just have a skirmish in a different territory, right? And that's happened ever since the Cold War started, after World War II, right? But we've been together during everything. World War I, they were our partner. World War II, Russia, USSR was our partner. And then we had the Cold War, and then we had the space race, and all the skirmishes that took place during that time, right? So you have to understand all these things that happen, and it's not black and white, man. It's not black and white. And if any of this is sounding like I'm being anti-American or something, I'm not, man. I love America. I love LA. This is where I'm from. I am Armenian. I love that too. I love my people in the country over there. But I'm American Armenian, man. You have to understand that. Like, I'm from here. It is what it is. I'm best of both worlds, as I always say. I don't give a fuck. I support the troops. I'm not anti-American, man. I love my country. That doesn't mean I have to love every fucking prick that runs for office or every prick that has control over something. Like Biden, to me, man, he just seems like he got elected and he became senile while he was in office, man. This guy really just, like, what the fuck? I personally don't vote. I don't vote on presidents, especially, you know. I just don't vote. I don't believe. Stalin said it's not who places the votes, it's who counts the votes that matters. And yeah, I think they predetermine who's going to be the winner, or they predetermine a whole bunch of, like, a handful of people, and then the people choose from those handful of people who's going to be our representative or our leader, right? Of which 95% of the decision making is automated, and then that 5% is what they kind of, like, the president has control over. Like, I'm gonna build a wall, right? So I wasn't massively enthusiastic about Trump, but I definitely wasn't enthusiastic about the Clintons. At least Hillary Clinton. She seemed fucking evil as fuck to me, man. That was just like, dude, this bitch, this gonna be the same last 20 fucking years. Biden, 50 years he's been doing this fucking shit. You know what? For once in history, like, here's a billionaire, right? A billionaire that makes money globally, that's already a billionaire. This isn't someone that's gonna go into office and then, like the Clintons, they came into office and then they left office with hundreds of millions of dollars in their bank accounts. And you only get paid $500,000 a year for being president. You know how much it costs to become United States president, in terms of all the money they have to generate, in terms of all this shit, like going state to state and whatnot? It's about $500 billion, $500 billion it costs for you to try to become the president of the United States. Who the fuck in the right mind spends $500 billion for a job that you make $500,000 every year? And then you leave office with hundreds of millions in your bank account. I just saw it as like, you know what? Here's a dude that's been running business from the get-go and is already a billionaire. At least, you know what, man? Let's try this. He might be saying some wild shit, which I found funny, especially like when they're like, hey, you said this about women. He's like, nope, only about Rosie O'Donnell. I love that shit, man. That's just fucking, that's humor to me, man. That's humor to the fullest. So now that Biden's in office, a whole bunch of people are scratching their heads like, holy fuck, man, we thought we had this shit figured out, but this Biden dude is like, what the fuck, right? Yeah, Putin over there. Majority of people in America respect, not like, not love, nothing. Respect Putin more than they do Biden. We, the United States people, man. If you ask anybody, most people respect Putin more than Biden, because at least that motherfucker is slick. He's with it. He's witty. He has answers. You ask him questions, he gives you the fucking answer. That dude is like the like, in terms of slick talk, he's like the Russian Obama. The dude was just slick with his words, man. He knew what he's talking about. He read his shit. He read the files they gave him. You know, he knows why he's doing what he's doing. So, it's, I mean, like, I don't know, man. I love America, but I also, I understand geopolitics. More than 99% of people understand geopolitics. So, that's my view on this. I'm sorry all this turmoil is happening in the world. Yes, I'm fucked up driving. I don't give a fuck, man. It's late night. I'm good. Buzz driving is not drug driving. So, you guys have a nice day. Make sure to appreciate the lovely people in your life and understand that just because you live a life where imminent danger is not lingering over your head, that doesn't mean that that's always going to be the case. Every generation had their war, man. Us United States, we're kind of spoiled because we're disconnected from the rest of the world by the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean. So kiss your kids, kiss your wife, kiss your family, your dog, your cat. Appreciate that shit, you know? Because it could change in a heartbeat. I love America, man. We need to stay strong. But just because I love the country, I love the place, that doesn't mean I love every fucking prick in charge. So, I don't know. Your opinions in the comment section, I'd appreciate it. You can tell me I'm wrong. You can educate me. You can disagree with me. I want to hear what you got to say. Just same way I want you to hear me, I genuinely want to hear you. I'm a person that I want to learn. And I can learn off every single person on the planet, because every person has a different perspective, point of view. You can tell me 10 things that I disagree with because I know facts too, and then you can tell me one thing that you have facts to that I'll be like, hey, you know what, you're right. So therefore, I have thick skin. I'm not gonna be hurt by anything you say, even if you attack me. I just genuinely would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. You guys have a blessed day. I hope all this shit is over soon with Ukraine and Russia, and the world can come back to a balanced state. Good night.